Krishna dear devotees, my humble obeisances to you all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you all for joining His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaj's daily class. Today we are continuing the Srimad Bhagavad Gita series. We are doing chapter overviews, and today is chapter 7, Knowledge of the Absolute. And today's class will be given by His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj, my humble obeisances to you, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for your time and association. You can start, Maharaj. I'll share my screen.
Umagyantimirandasya Ganajana Salakaya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Shri Makti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvase Sasunyavadi Pastyatya De Satarine Vanshakopa Tarubhischa Kripa Sindhuve Bacha Patitanam Pavane Vyo Vaishnave Vyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we begin the 7th chapter. The 7th chapter begins another section of the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita actually in a larger division is divided into 3 categories. The first 6 chapters, the second 6, and the last 6. Now, the first 6 chapters are mostly concerned, of course, setting the stage for the knowledge given by Krishna by taking the first chapters on the battlefield and all the dynamics that go on between Krishna and Arjuna to get Krishna ultimately to convince Arjuna to fight. Now, in those first 6 chapters, knowledge was centered around transcendental knowledge, knowledge of the self, and knowledge of the different aspects of the Supreme Lord, knowledge of the difference between matter and spirit. So that was preliminary knowledge. These are knowledge that are usually interested by the karmis, the jnanis, the yogis. But here in the 7th chapter, now we begin what is now knowledge of Krishna, or the absolute truth, how to attain perfection. That knowledge of the Supreme Personality of God, and then the path to receive that knowledge is known as bhakti. And these second 6 chapters center around the principle of bhakti yoga. Continue. You see Radha Govinda. Here is just a little summary of the previous chapter, how it played itself out. The different advancement in yoga through detached work, giving up work, stages of yoga, controlling the mind, destination of unsuccessful yogi, and topmost yogi. Well, the thing is, at least it ends in the very end, the last verse, Yogi Nam Api Sarvesham Agatendranat Manaha Stradavan Bhajite Yomam Teme Yuktatamo Mataha. After Krishna is explaining all of the different yoga systems and those who are successful, those who fail, the different stages of the systems, he ends with what is the bhakti yogi. And that begins the beginning of the 7th chapter. So you have to understand, Gita is very systematically presented. Krishna is presenting this knowledge in a very systematic way. You don't find that in Bhagavatam or in some of the other scriptures. In some you do, but Bhagavad Gita is very systematic. Sometimes it repeats itself just to emphasize something, but ultimately it is always systematic in its presentation. Now we're going into the area of bhakti. Next slide. So here is the breakdown of this chapter. Verses, as to see here, the different verses and the different descriptions of the categories within the verses. Verses 1 through 3, know Krishna in full by hearing about him, his energies, material and spiritual, the three modes, and to surrender to Krishna. Knowledge of Krishna, knowledge of the process of surrender. And then we get into another area, those who surrender unto the demigods and those who are impersonalists. So Krishna takes time to show you what is lesser, but at the same time by showing what is higher. This is important to understand when you present knowledge. Just to present the highest is not sufficient to convince people to accept it. You have to show them what is the lesser forms of knowledge or the lesser forms of spiritual practice. And Krishna carefully does that throughout the Gita. And in the last section, how the living entity gets bewildered, and ultimately, again, freedom through knowledge of Krishna. So we'll go to the first verse. So here again, we're getting a little synopsis of the chapter and a little bit a mention of the previous. So that 647 is from the last chapter. Okay, now the first verse. Yeah. Krishna requests Arjuna to hear both of his material and spiritual energies. And he declares that the transcendental who succeeds and truly know him is most rare. So that's a summary of these three verses. So we'll get into the actual verse by verse here. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Shakta Mano Partha Yoga Yunjam Manasrayaha Asamsayam Samagram Mam Yata Jasyasi Chachtrinu. Now he's speaking to Arjuna. How by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. Everything is summarized in this first verse. You practice that yoga, but that yoga has to be in full consciousness of Krishna, which is the bhakti process. And that mind develops attachment for Krishna through the process of hearing about Krishna. Then you can know of Krishna in full without asamsayam samagramam, free from all doubt. This particular verse is interesting in one sense, is that Srila Prabhupada spoke thousands and thousands and thousands of verses and gave so many classes. And all of those classes and verses have been categorized according to repetition. And this particular verse, Srila Prabhupada spoke about more than any other verse in his entire time with us. He chose this verse to give the most classes, and it's by far in number much more than any of the other verses. So this verse is very important because Krishna sums up the whole process, how to know him, right here. Okay, so through hearing, and there's three aspects. Lord Krishna's can be understood through the impersonal, the localized, and ultimately the Bhagavan. The devotees are interested in the Bhagavan manifestation. The Jnanis are interested in the Brahman. The yogis are interested in the Paramatma aspect of the Supreme Lord. And you can see that here, Brahma, Paramatma, and then Bhakti Yogi brings one to the personal feature of the Lord, which is the complete manifestation of the Godhead. One who becomes fixed in transcendental knowledge by constantly hearing, engaging in the process of bhakti. There are 9 processes. What is the results? Impurities are wiped away. One understands the science perfectly. And then by doing that, one is able to concentrate their mind on Krishna. You can see partial realization comes from jnana and Astanga yoga for the jnanis and the bhakt and the yogis, but for the devotees, that's full realization of the absolute truth. Next. Here, this mentions the different process of bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smartam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Bandham, Dasam, Sakyam, Atman, Nivedanam, and the different ways that one can worship the Lord by hearing, by chanting and glorifying the Lord and speaking about Him, by remembering Him, by serving His lotus feet. That will be explained in the next slide. By worshiping Him in the deity. Go back. Don't wait, not yet. Whoa. I didn't finish that one yet. By praying, by becoming servant of the Lord, and by friendship, and by complete surrender, Atmani Vedanam. So out of these 9 processes, the first 7 are within the process of Vaidhi Bhakti, and the last 2, Sankhya and Atmani Vedanam, are spontaneous devotional service, to become a friend of Krishna, to surrender everything. Everything means mind, body, words, possessions, everything in the service of the Lord. This verse is spoken by Prahlad Maharaj, as is mentioned here in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so verse number 2 comes up now. And then there's 2 kinds of knowledge. One who knows both knows everything. There's nothing left to know. What is that? Phenomenal and numinous. Phenomenal means this material world. Numinous means that which is beyond the material world. When you know both, then you know everything. There's nothing further to be known. Jnanateham sadvigyanam idam bhakshami asheshataha yagyana nehibuyam yaj gyatavyam avashishyate. Both nominal and side by side, knowing material and spiritual knowledge. How the material world works is the knowledge of the material, not that one has to gain knowledge so they can exploit the material energy. That's not knowledge of the material. It means how the material energy works within the 3 categories of modes of material nature. Okay. There's just a recap. Verses. Okay. He's the controller. He's the cause of all causes, the source of all knowledge. So you're going to get a lot about Krishna in this chapter. You're going to learn how he does things, what is his actual position above the living entities, above the material energy, how he's seen within the material energy in different ways. Yeah. So this verse is a recap from the first 2. Okay. All right, so now Manushanam Sahasreshu Kaschid Yatati Sinaye Yatatam Api Sidhanam Kaschid Mambeti Tatvanaha. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and those who have achieved perfection hardly knows me in truth. So here it's rare and practically impossible to know Krishna in truth. In fact, Prabhupada makes that point that even Krishna doesn't know himself in truth, because he's always becoming greater and greater. So just to use that as a comparison, if one can achieve perfection. That is very rare also. But one should endeavor for perfection. Okay. So this verse is now different types of persons. Those who are interested in the material aspect of life, the animal propensities, they're generally, they can't know Krishna. Those who practice devotion to Krishna, super soul, any aspect of the absolute truth, only very few actually know him. You might say, was that a reason to give up? No, because we can know him, but if we could constantly follow the process and develop, and if you know him to a certain degree, not completely, that's enough to develop your love for him. And by that love, that will transform you back to the spiritual world. Okay, so you have you. Okay, so now we're going into the next section. Krishna is the source of both material and spiritual energies. Yeah, this is important to understand. Even the material energy is coming from him. So this section here, verses 4 through 12, describes that source. Next one. Now Krishna tells how the material energy is made up of. He says, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these 8 constitute my separated material energies. So the whole material energies in different combinations of these 8 elements make up the 8,400,000 species of life. So when you look, that means there's nothing beyond these 8 elements, and the forms that they produce comprise the 8,400,000 species, and they're all within the 3 modes of material nature. But then Krishna says, yeah, but there's something higher, and that is my superior energy. And those are the living entities who are here in the material energy, who are trying to find happiness through exploiting the material energy. So the living entity is distinct from the body. So Krishna again emphasizes the importance that he is the source of both natures, and he is the origin and also the dissolution of everything. Now in the next verse, number 7, of course, well, okay, there's a recap on number 4 here. You get to see the different aspects of this particular verse, the different elements, the mind, the intelligence, the false ego, and then the different incarnations of the Lord, which bring about the material energy. Shirodakshai Vishnu, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, Mahavishnu. The material energy is constituted for 2 reasons. One, to allow the living entities who want to enjoy the material energy to make an attempt to try that through their endeavors in the material world. But the material energy is so constituted that one cannot control the material energy, and therefore they become controlled by the material energy. The result is they become frustrated. When they become frustrated, they may turn away from that endeavor towards spiritual life. And that's another purpose of the material energy, is to frustrate the living entities' desire to enjoy in this material world. Both to facilitate that enjoyment and to frustrate the enjoyment. Both are the purpose of the material energies. Next. So he has three energies: the internal energy, antaranga, the bahiranga, the external, and then the tasta, the marginal energy, that's the jiva. And bahiranga energy is the material world, gross and subtle, made up of the different elements, along with the mind intelligence and false ego. Next chapter, next verse. Okay, this is a very powerful verse, often quoted by Srila Prabhupada to illustrate that Krishna is the supreme source of all existence. Mata parataram nanyat kischirasta dhananjaya maya savamidam proktam shruti mani ganaiva. He's speaking to Arjuna. There is no truth superior to me. Anyone who thinks anyone is true, there's something higher than Krishna, he destroys it by this verse. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread, using that analogy that there are so many pearls and they're all together only because of the thread. Otherwise, if there was no thread, the pearls would be in different places. But everything rests upon him. He is that thread that carries everything, both material and spiritual. And he is this, both the source and the controller. So in this chapter, Krishna is making his point of who he is, actually. So then, in the next verses, we're getting a little summary here. We haven't got to the verses yet, but here is some of the summaries. He's taste, he's light, he's the Om, he's sound, ability, fragrance, heat, so on and so forth. He's sex life, which is not contrary to religious principles. He's the life that all that lives. He is the penance performed by aesthetics. He is the ability of man. He's the heat and fire. He's the taste and water. All of these things, Krishna helps us to illustrate. Prabhupada was talking about this to one man, one reporter. He was saying, you can see the light. That light of the sun, that's Krishna. Why? Because it is coming from him. And therefore, he says he is the light of the sun and the moon. Sound is produced by everything is produced by the Lord, but he picks out certain ones that are prominent in the material energy. This particular category of descriptions are also played out in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita too. You'll come back to that again. But he gets more personal in that one. Here he just talks about qualities. And the other one he talks about personalities. So it's very important to understand that everything you see in existence has its source within Krishna, and he is the best of all. That's why here it emphasizes the best. Okay? And then now, know that all states of being, goodness, passion, and ignorance, material energy, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of material nature, for they, on the contrary, are within me. So some people say when Krishna comes to the material world, he takes on a material body, and he also becomes controlled by that same nature. Krishna destroys that idea right here. He said all of the material energies making up the three modes is everything, but I'm the controller, but at the same time, I am independent. They're in me, and I am not in them. He says that in another place. Very important verse. This is one of the most important verses in this chapter. To know that Krishna is not part of this material world, even when he comes. He may play the part of an ordinary human being, but that is simply his play in the material world. It's just like an actor on the stage. When an actor performs in the drama, he plays the part very well, but he is actually not that part. He has his own independent identity. So in the same way, Krishna plays so many parts in this world. He plays his child, he plays his friend, he plays his lover, plays his creator, destroyer. But aside from that, he has his own identity. And he's not controlled by the parts he plays. That's the most important thing. Okay. Here we're getting a little vision of this same verse. So one who understands that everything is controlled by Krishna, they should surrender. That's the logical conclusion of understanding this knowledge. Surrender to Krishna. Because if he's everything and he's controlling everything, if you try to remain separate from him, then you'll be controlled by that energy rather than being free from the energy. If you surrender to Krishna, then you're freed from the modes of material energy, or the control of the modes. Now Krishna says, deluded by the three modes, the whole world does not know me, who are above the modes and inexhaustible. Again, he makes the point. When he comes to the material world, he is above these modes. But people don't see that because they're under the illusion of these three. What is that illusion? They see the material energy working, and they see Krishna within the material energy, and they see him to be part of that material energy. And so it's like taking the shadow to be the person rather than the person. But then he says, here, how to get above all of this. And he calls it's interesting, he calls the three modes of material nature divine. He says, Daivyesha, Gunamayi, Mama Maya Dharatyaya, Mameva Vaye Prapadyante Mayam Etam Taratite. That energy is divine. It's made up of the three modes. Because it's divine, it's created by me. That's why it's divine. And it is difficult to overcome. He uses the word difficult. But what he actually is saying, it's impossible to overcome unless you surrender to me. Then it becomes easy. If you try to swim across the ocean, you'll drown. No matter how great a swimmer you are. You may be an Olympic swimmer. You may have won so many gold medals in swimming. You may have swim across the English Channel. But if you try to swim across an ocean, you'll never do it. So, but if you have a good boat, you can get across that ocean very easy. That boat is supplied by those who surrender. Therefore, Krishna takes that person. You can see the caption here. This living entity is struggling in that ocean, and Krishna comes on his carrier Garuda and picks him up and takes him across. So Krishna's we're making an effort, and Krishna's giving us the help we need to be successful. And there's an illustration on this slide again. Here, difficult to overcome. It's the divine energy. These are ropes, the three gunas. Actually, the word guna in Sanskrit means mode, M-O-D-E, and it also means rope. It has two meanings. The Sanskrit language is so arranged that actually sometimes the meaning of what it does becomes the definition of the word. So a rope is one that binds, the three modes bind the living entity to the cycle of birth and death. No, we're conditioned, and we can never trace out our conditioning. So now we go into the next one, the next section. And then you'll start to hear about the impious and the pious. This is 5 verses here. This is interesting. So Krishna gives the whole summary in here. He mentions the impious, namam duskritina mudha prapadyante naradama, maya parita jnana suram bhavamas. Those who are miscreants are grossly foolish, lowest of mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, who partake in the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. So he mentions the 4 categories who don't surrender. Next slide. Now here, the Naradamas, lowest of mankind, is Suram Bhavamasa, envious towards God, Mayap again, knowledge stolen by illusion, grossly foolish like hardworking asses of burden. You can see the 4, they're called Duskritina. They may have intelligence, but their intelligence is in the wrong direction. Mudha. So I'll explain it as we go through this, these different graphs here. So go to the next one. So yeah. So here's the Mudha. He's like a donkey. He's working hard. I don't really understand that middle caricature there. Prem Kishori, are you there?
Hiranyakashipu, Guru Maharaj?
The middle one, that's Karanikashipu?
No.
I don't know that particular.
Looks like
Yes.
Ravana, Guru Maharaj, 10
Yeah.
heads.
Maybe it's like representing the Jnana.
Yeah, it's
Maharaj?
Ravana. Yeah, Ravana. The demons who never surrender, those who work hard, like that. Here's Krishna and Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda freeing Jagai and Madai. They are lowest of the mankind. Go to the next slide. It should be give us more detail here. Oh no, go back. Yeah. Okay. So I'll describe these 4 classes again. The 4 classes. One who grossly foolish like hardworking asses. In other words, it's the guy who he works hard all day. He's doing construction in the roads. He's working in the factories and the mills. He comes home, he sits in front of the television, gets his can of beer, and that's him, the Mudhas. The Naradamas, the lowest of mankind, they think that social and political development within society will be the solution to the problems of society. So they work economically, socially, politically to bring people to a better state. They're called the lowest of mankind. They have no understanding of God. They think material programs are the solution. Maya Prabhita Gyan, these are the professors, the scientists, the plan makers. They study many books. They have PhDs. They have so many other forms of what we say, educational carriers attached to their names. But they don't know anything. They can't even tie their shoes. Some of them. They're the mad professors. They can quote so many books, but they have no knowledge of the absolute truth, nor do they understand the goal of life. So they never surrender also because they're deluded by that energy, by that knowledge. I remember I went to one college one time to give a class and one professor, and I came into his office. I was astounded. The whole office practically 3 walls of the office, there were books stacked all the way up. No one could even reach the books. They were so highly stacked all the way up to the ceiling. Must have thousands and thousands of books there. I was going to ask him whether he read them all, but I didn't. So, yeah. So these are the PhDs. Sometimes we use a little acronym. PhD means permanent head damage, something like that. Anyway, these are the persons who think they're advanced, but they have no understanding of God nor the purpose of life. Although they may be able to speak on any subject, they can't speak about what is actually essential. And then the last ones, those who are envious, the demons, those who cause trouble to other living entities. They make wars, they create viruses, they do all kinds of other kinds of nonsense. These are the demons. Okay. And then now the 4 kinds of people who do surrender to me: Chatur Vidya, Bhajate Mam, Jnana Sukriti Arjuna, Artha Jigyasu Arti, Jnana Chabara Tasaba. 4 kinds of pious men render devotional service to me. So this is interesting. We find ourselves to be in one of these 4 categories in our initial approach to spiritual life. We come either out of distress, we come because we want some better material arrangement for living in this material world. We're curious. What is spiritual life? We're inquisitive. And then there's those who actually want to know what is the absolute truth. What is that knowledge that makes up the absolute truth? 4 kinds of men. They're pious. They render devotional service. We come for one of these 4. Next slide. So here, these are illustrations of these different pious people. You have Dhruva Maharaj. He came for wealth. You have the elephant. What was his name?
Gajendra.
Brajendra. He came out of distress. He's in distress. You have also Draupadi. Then you have those who are inquisitive here. You have a little satsang there. And you have Hanuman there with Ram. And so those who come out of knowledge, those who come out of inquisitiveness. So these are just illustrations of the different persons who come. Okay, so pious people. Okay, pious people adherent to regulative principles. Then it mentions the 4 categories again. They're all called Sukritis. They're pious because they've come to the right place. Even the 2 that come for material reasons, the distress and those who are seeking wealth, they're also called Krishna calls them Mahatma, actually, because they've come to the right place. And then they learn that actually, when they stay, the distress, the desires of wealth, and the inquisitive, when they actually become fixed in devotional service, they give up their desires for freedom from distress. They give up their desires to gain material wealth. Their inquisitiveness is about now how to execute the process of bhakti. In one sense, and then you have the Jnani. The Jnani is the best. He's in full knowledge of the absolute truth. free from material desires, engaged in devotional service. Krishna is very dear to him, and he's very dear to Krishna. Material nature cannot touch him. So this doesn't refer to the jnanis, like the ones who are actually worshiping according to jnana karma. These are jnanis who are in full, they are in the best. He is the best because he's come for the right reason. He wants to learn about the absolute truth. Okay. And Krishna says, all these are magnanimous, but one who is situated in knowledge, I consider to be just like my own self. Krishna makes the distinction of the one who is situated in knowledge. Being engaged in my transcendental service, he is sure to attain me, the highest and most perfect goal. Yeah. The one who is actually looking. And then it says, this verse is very important. Those who are actually seeking knowledge of the absolute truth, if they seek it in the right process, Bahunam Jnanamamante Jnanamamam Prapadyante Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sadurlabhaha. After many, many births, he was actually in knowledge. In other words, after cultivating knowledge from many, many births, one who surrenders to me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is, such a great soul is very rare. The end of all knowledge is to surrender to Krishna. One who has knowledge but doesn't surrender to Krishna, they haven't reached the actual perfection of knowledge, or they refuse to accept what is real knowledge. Real knowledge is not book knowledge that you learn of facts and figures and philosophy. Real knowledge means to know Krishna is the cause of all causes. Okay, here's a little graph explaining that same verse. Okay. Now we go into another section. Those who have no knowledge. And what is their characteristics? First verse, verse number 20. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto the demigods and follow particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own nature. Well, Krishna is going to speak about those who worship the devas. The first thing he says, their knowledge has been stolen. And that means if you have knowledge and it's stolen, what you think is knowledge is no longer knowledge. It's ignorance or illusion or nescience. Next verse. Then he goes on to say, I am seated in everyone's heart as super soul. And one desires to worship some demigod, I help him. I make it steady fast because Krishna will fulfill your desire to worship the demigods. But he warns you before then that if you do that, you're not very intelligent. But still, okay, go ahead. If that's what you really want. But then he comes back to the first one again in the next verse. Endowed with such faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and attain his desires. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me. So what he's saying is, worship me. Why worship the demigods? Because whatever the demigods can give comes from me. Instead of praising the police officer, praise the mayor. Because the police officer works under the guise of the mayor. And he gets his job because of that. So in the same way, Krishna is saying, hey, Why waste time worshiping the demigods? And then he also goes on to say, men of small intelligence worship the dead, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. So now he's saying, yeah, these benefits that the demigods can give you are limited and temporary. And if you go to these planets where the demigods, you can stay there for a little while, but then you fall back down. And again, you're in a lower position again. The demigods cannot give you permanence in anything. They can give you some material benefit. But Krishna says, worship me, and you'll get me instead of material benefits. And that's even higher. Those who actually want to worship Krishna will understand material benefits are simply a diversion away from the supreme goal of life. Okay. Now this verse 20. Oh, okay. Here we go. A little graph on the same thing we just talked about. You can see all of the lack of knowledge, results are perishable, stolen by illusion, different modes. Krishna is actually the source of the demigods, keeps one in the material misery. So, and we see in our society that many persons practice demigod worship, but because it's traditional, and those who've grown up in the Indian culture still worship demigods because it's been there since their birth. But actually, Krishna is showing that actually is not necessary. It's a waste of time, and it doesn't give you real happiness or satisfaction. So here, what is the nature of one who worships? One who was the philosophy? What is their attitude? What do they do? And what is the result? So you see the five categories of the demigod worshippers. So you can take note of this. And now Krishna again sums up it. Unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly think I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, was impersonal before, now have assumed this a personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme. Krishna is making the point that he's not impersonal, and he has assumed his personalities. People say that when he comes to the material world, he assumes a form, but he is really impersonal. And that's what this is very common. This is a mistake that thousands and hundreds of thousands of people think, that God is simply impersonal, because impersonal is broad and personality seems to be limited. But that's the material conception of personality. Krishna's personality is unlimited, and everything is there within his personality. So his personality is eternal, and he doesn't become personal from an impersonal. Actually, the impersonal is subordinate to the personal, as the sun is superior to the sunshine and is the source of the sunshine. But Krishna is the source of the impersonal. Mm-hmm. This is a nice verse. Aham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samanvitaham budoyo navajananti lokamam abjamaviyam. I'm never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them I'm covered by my eternal creative potency, yogamaya, and so the deluded world knows me not, who are unborn and infallible. So the foolish, the unintelligent, the speculators cannot understand anything about Krishna, although they may speak something about the Lord, which is simply part of their lack of knowledge. That's all. And people like to comment on the absolute truth, but Krishna says they're foolish. That's all. And he's never manifested to such persons. No matter how sincere they are in their foolishness, he doesn't reveal himself to them. The qualification of understanding Krishna is to become a pure devotee. And those who are not devotees, they consider him ordinary when he comes to the material world. The picture illustrates that. So now we go to the concluding section of the chapter. O Arjuna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, oops, I can't see 726. I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but no one knows me. Krishna is summing him up. I know everything, past, present, and future. And I know what's coming in the future also. And I know every living entity, inside and out, everything. But me, no one knows. This is very difficult to know. But then he says, O conqueror of the foe, all living entities are born in delusion, bewildered by dualities arising from desire and hate. So we're born into ignorance. And unless we accept knowledge coming from higher sources, that is from Krishna and from pure shastras such as Gita and Bhagavad, we can never we stay in that delusion. It means that we have desire, and when our desires are not fulfilled, we become unhappy or hateful. Persons who act, this is a very important verse. Previous lives and in this life, whose sinful activities are completely eradicated, are free from the dualities of delusion, and engage themselves in my service with determination. Yes. So here's the qualities. Complete, who acted piously in this life and in previous life, whose sinful activities are gone, who are not bewildered by delusion, and who engage in my service. 4 points are mentioned in this verse. Show the graph. I think it might come up in one of the succeeding slides there. That's for 27. Okay. Those who go on to the next one. We already explained that one. Yeah. This is very important. Yeah. Now this verse here, qualifications to perform determined devotional service. The word is drita vrata. That service which is done in a determined way. And these are the characteristics that make up the person who can perform drita vrata. In other words, if you don't have these qualities, it's very difficult, practically impossible, to stay fixed on the passes of devotional service in a determined way. So what are those qualities? Freedom from all impiety, like that. The 4 qualities we mentioned in the verse. Transcending dualities. Okay. I can't see that whole verse. Intelligent persons I can't see that whole thing. Computer thing is in the way. Anyway.
Gurmaharaj, are you able to see now? I'm moving the.
Bring the slide down a little bit if you can.
Sorry,
Put the
Gurmaharaj,
slide
I
down.
don't think it's possible.
Well, what does it say? Intelligent persons, blank endeavor,
who are endeavoring for liberation.
who are endeavoring from old age and death, take refuge in me. They are actually Brahman because they know entirely everything about the transcendental. Now Krishna is going to sum up everything he said in these last two verses. And he begins his summation in this verse here. Those who are actually endeavoring for perfection will take refuge in me in devotional service. And they know everything because they're rightly situated. In the last verse, number 730. Now he says the same thing again he said in the first verse. Those who are in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation, of the demigods, of the methods of sacrifice, can understand me and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. So Krishna gives so much assurance in this chapter, you can know him. Although he explains the qualifications, and they seem to be very difficult, but at the same time, he gives the formula by which you can transcend all of the difficulties, developing absorption in the Supreme and engage in devotional service. And he controls the material manifestations. He is the source of the demigods. He controls the demigods, all methods of sacrifice. And one who knows all of these can understand me and what is the perfection at the time of death. And then one Takto Adeham Purna Janmani Naiti Mameti Surjuna. One goes back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. Here is a little summary of the last verse again. You can read the different balloons there. Here's Haridas Thakur being carried by Lord Chaitanya. The Lord had so much love for Haridas Thakur that he carried his body and performed the last ceremony for the last rites of Haridas, just to show his love for his devotee. To be a devotee of the Lord means to be very dear to Krishna. To be dear to Krishna is the goal of life. And here again, here's the summation of the different sections, 6 sections and different categories. Take a mental note of this, and that way you can see how the chapter is broken up into different categories. And that way you can understand the chapter very easily when you understand the categories and how it's explained by Krishna. Okay, so you're off.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much for the class. Thank you so much. Dear devotees, before going to question and answers, I just want to present the poll quiz again today with 2 questions. Hope you are all ready. This is the first question on your screen.
Don't you can take the hand questions first? Take the hand questions first, then do these quiz questions at the end.
Okay, Maharaj.
Yeah. Anyone who wants to ask questions, and the quiz is at the end.
Okay, sure. Rishabh Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisance to Gurudev. Guru Maharaj, thank you very much for this understanding. And And I have two questions. One question regarding knowing Krishna to be the source of everything. Of course, we theoretically know this, but what does it mean in practice? So does it mean that we are walking around and we see Krishna everywhere? Or how does, how to be sure that we actually really imbibe all of this knowledge that Krishna is sharing in the 7th chapter?
He says to know me means to know everything phenomenal and noumenal. Says that in the 2nd verse. So it's not possible to know everything phenomenal and noumenal. It's not. But if you, to whatever degree you can know it, that to that degree you can know Krishna. So he explains. He says that he helps you know it through the whole chapter. If you were paying attention, you saw how he explained it. He mentions the different energies and how the energies work under his control. What are the qualities of the energies? He is the source of the energies. So he's giving that knowledge, but you're taking it theoretically. So learn how to take it fully, not just theoretically. And that comes by bhakti, by your process.
So does it mean that we are walking on the street and we are meditating on these points and seeing by the eyes of jnana, seeing of the eyes of knowledge?
Everything you see in this material world is coming, and he explains that in the 4th verse. Boomer up on the low bayou, coming on Buddha Vapacha. These 8 elements are created by me. They make up the whole material world. So when you see the forms in the material world, they're no more than these 8 elements. Mostly the forms are the 5 elements. When you see a living entity, he's made up of the 8 elements on the material level. And then that Krishna is the source of all of that, both spiritual and material. He says, I'm the source of all everything.
Okay, so that this is how we know. The second question about the 4 persons who approach Krishna and 4 persons that do not approach Krishna. I was thinking how to imply this in preaching and Sankirtan, because we meet lots of people on the street, and so I assume if these 4 types of persons who are will not approach the God, they will not be able to be preached to. Do we preach to such persons?
We preach to him. You don't know until you actually speak to them. What is their mindset? Well, most people are engaged in material activities for betterment of their life, which falls into the category of Naradama or Maya Aparita Gyan, or they fall into one of the 4 categories. But if someone is actually distressed and is looking for ways out of their distress, then they're a candidate for devotional service. You can ask them, hey, are you feeling distressed? Are you happy? Are you feeling distressed? And then if they say yes, then you say, well, we have the formula for relieving your distress, and then you preach. You speak Krishna consciousness.
What if they are not honest and they say, many times people are like, they look so pale when you approach them. Oh, how are you? Oh, I'm happy. That moment, I'm happy. And then after 5 seconds, they are like, again, rose. So it's like, I mean, what should I say? Like, no, you're not happy.
Yeah, you can say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You might think you're happy, but you're going to die. You're going to get old. You're going to get diseased. Can you fulfill all your desires? Of course, if you challenge them, they may be offended. You have to, preaching means to use your intelligence to know the person. You have to see what will work.
Okay, thank you. This categorization helps to quickly understand who is on which level, and just to act on my level, not to be an uttama. Okay, thank you, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Haribol.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Deepti Mataji, you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranamam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, and please accept my humble obeisance. Maharaji, my question is I recently read in some WhatsApp post that Sri Krishna has established a Shiva Linga in Pakistan. And also I read in Ramayana also after the war, Rama did actually Shivling Stapana. So I was just wondering, is he encouraging Lord Shiva to pray? I mean, how we can take it, because there are a lot of Shiva devotees as well, right? So between a lot of times they say that Krishna and Shiva they pray each other, or they are equal. So how should we see that, Maharaji?
What do you think?
I pray both gods, actually.
Okay, well, the thing is, if you know the Leelas, you have to understand the Leelas that were happening. Ram is worshiping his devotee, Shiva. Sometimes the Lord worships his devotee. And that's that particular Leela. Well, the two Shiva Lingas were established, one by Sita and one by Hanuman. Both were worshipped by Ram. So Ramadi Morti Sukalani Amena Tishtana Navatara Kano Bhuvanesa Kinchu Krishna Swayam Samavavat Paramam Pamanyo Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Ram is an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the Vaikuntha realm. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shiva is mentioned as not as the Supreme, but as a devotee of the Supreme. Nimna Ganga Gita Ganga Devanara Chutabayam Vaishnavas Yita Shambhu Puranaya Idam Tataha. And out of all of the Vaishnavas, Shiva is the best. But sometimes he plays the role of the Supreme for those who can't worship the Supreme Lord. So he takes them to Ram, he takes them to Krishna. His followers are those who are usually in the mode of ignorance. So to raise them up from the mode of ignorance to the mode of passion, and hopefully to the mode of goodness, he presents him, they worship him, because he is a devotee of the Lord. But he's not the Supreme. Although he may play that role for the sake of those persons who are not qualified because of so many sinful activities. You have to see that the Lord is very merciful. He even wants to raise up those who are so low that they worship Shiva. And then they can, if they worship Shiva nicely, then they can come gradually, they can come get a little purified and then become qualified to come to the next stage of worship. The Shiva is very dynamic. He plays different roles. He's a demigod. He's a great Vaishnava, and he also plays the role of the Supreme, but he's not the Supreme. He does that only to elevate the demoniac class of people. Who worship Shiva? Ravana worshipped Shiva. For material benefit. Demons worship Shiva, mostly, as the Supreme. But the devotees honor Shiva as the best of all demigods. The best of all Vaishnavas. So Shiva is so dynamic, you can't understand him. He plays different roles at different times for different classes of people. That's a very broad category to explain actually Lord Shiva's position, because it'll take like classes to describe that. But he's in different roles. People can't worship Krishna because Krishna, they think, is too difficult. He's asking too much. Shiva gives material benedictions. So they worship Shiva to get material benedictions. But Krishna says in this same chapter, those who worship the devas, their intelligence has been stolen by illusion. So we say to people who are attached to worship Shiva, worship him as the supreme, and then he'll bring you to the supreme. Don't worship him for material benefits, or worship him as the best of all Vaishnavas. Well, most people worship, just like it's mentioned in the Bhagavad. The devotees of Krishna are very poor, and the devotees of Shiva are very wealthy. It mentions that. Shiva doesn't even have a house to live in. He lives under a tree, but yet all of his followers are wealthy. And Vishnu has palaces, and his devotees are poor, generally. Right, Sri Devi? You're poor.
I am very wealthy, Guru Maharaj. I have the great good fortune of your divine lotus feet shelter. What greater good fortune is there?
Don't change the subject.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Raj Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to you, Maharaj, all glories to all of the devotees. Maharaj, in the presentation, it was mentioned many times the term surrender to Krishna. Can you please elaborate on what that actually means in practice?
Give up all your own ideas on how you can be happy and successful in life, and surrender, and then just go under the control of the Supreme Lord. That's all.
Okay.
When he says Sarva Dharma Pariksha Jam, that means you may have so many ideas on how you can be happy, advance yourself, be successful. He says, forget all of these. Just come to me. I'll give you shelter. I'll give you complete satisfaction. Everything you'll find in Krishna. So he's telling you, stop looking somewhere else.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay.
Sridevi Mataji, please go ahead.
Thank you. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Prabhupada. Thank you for this very wonderful chapter and wonderful explanations. Guru Maharaj, this subject of demigod worship, at every ceremony, at every program, generally in our culture, we worship Lord Ganesh first as the remover of all obstacles, harbinger of all auspiciousness, bestower of all benedictions, etc. So as Krishna devotees, how we should look on this?
How should we look on what?
On this worship of Ganesh.
That's explained by the Acharyas. Ganesh worships Lord Nrsingadev. he carries the lotus feet of Lord Nrsingadev on his head. So it says in the Nectar Devotion that to remove obstacles in devotional service, one can worship Ganesh for the removal of obstacles. But then the acharyas also come on that, but obstacles are also removed by the Supreme Lord by worshiping the Supreme Lord in the form of Lord Nrsingadev. So those who can't worship Lord Nrsingadev worship Ganesh to remove obstacles, but those who are lower worship Ganesh for material success. They pray to Ganesh. Usually they have, those who are businessmen, especially in India, they have either deities or pictures of Ganesh on their desks. So he's a deva, but we honor him as a deva because he's the son of Shiva. But we don't worship him for either obstacle removing or for material success.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you, Mataji. Maharaj, I have a question. Like when we are talking about understanding Krishna, Krishna says in this chapter, like so many times, those who understand me. So what exactly means understanding? Like, do we know that just simply by knowing that Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead, or knowing about the pastimes of Krishna? And so that is enough.
Doesn't he explain that? One who knows me as the cause of all causes. He says that in the chapter.
Yes, yes.
That's knowing him. That everything that is in existence has a remote cause. Yeah. And that's Krishna. Krishna is the remote cause of everything. The obvious cause is the interaction of the material energy. But the remote cause is Krishna's behind that interaction. Everything. He is the mind. He is everything. There's nothing you can say that is not Krishna. The only thing that is not Krishna, but at the same time is Krishna, is that he doesn't interfere with your independence. He can, but he doesn't. He allows you to choose. But if he wants, he can influence your thoughts also. But he doesn't do that. He allows you to make your choices. That way, he wants you to choose the right thing. When you choose the right thing, then you're fixed on it. If you're forced to choose the right thing, you may not be fixed on it.
Yes, got it.
Ishwara Parama Krishna, Satchit Ananda, Vigraha, Anadir Adir, Govinda, Sarva Karna, Karna. Cause of all causes, he is the Adi Purush, he is the original personality of Godhead. No one is greater to Nitya Nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam, Eko Bahunam Vidadati Kaman. He's maintaining, he is the one, Nityo, and he's maintaining all of the others, Nityanam, Eko Bahunam Vidadati. And no one is equal to him, no one is greater than him. Well, yeah, these are principles of understanding.
Yes, Maharaj, yes. But this chapter is very wonderful. Like Krishna is giving a lot of details about him and the energies. So, yeah.
But in the Gita, he only gives about his functioning in the Bhagavatam, you go into his intimate nature with his devotees. That's deep. That's deeper knowledge of Krishna. That's more complete knowledge of Krishna. How he interacts with his loving devotees in the different pastimes.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
He doesn't do that in Gita, though.
Yeah. Dear devotees, any more questions or comments?
Mataji, I have one more. Can I ask?
Can you please wait, Mataji? We'll
Yeah.
go to Seshni Mataji. Please, Seshni Mataji, please come. You
Hare
have
Krishna.
yeah. Not able to hear you, Mataji.
Yeah, it's muted.
No, she's unmute, but I don't know why. Mataji, sorry, we are not able to hear you. Hare Krishna.
Can you unmute her from where you are?
No, she is already unmuted, Guru Maharaj. No, we can't hear you. Can you log off and log in again? Join again?
Now, can you hear me?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hare Krishna, my humble obeisances and all glories to Srila Prabhupada and to Candramauli Swami. Maharaji, thank you for a wonderful lecture again about Krishna. I think this is such an important chapter and it actually sums up a lot about Krishna consciousness. And I've read the Gita a few times, but just these past few lessons that I've been attending, it's really been so helpful. It feels like I'm only understanding everything now. So I just wanted to ask, because we say in this chapter, you spoke about Krishna having, he's obviously creating everything, the spiritual and the material. So, you know, a lot of the times, I feel for myself, I obviously am not in that position to, I think we have to obviously go through different stages and come to the stage of renunciation, and obviously not with the material wealth. How do we balance it? Because obviously we want to be part, for myself, I want to be part of the spiritual journey, but obviously there's an entanglement in the material world. But then in this chapter, we're saying that actually Krishna is creating everything, even the material. So where's that balance? How do we balance this?
Well, Krishna he makes some statements in this regard. He says you'll come in the 9th chapter, verse number 27, said, Yad Karosi, Yad Anasi, Yad Jahosi, Dadasi, Yad Tapasi, Tupuntaya, Tad Gurusham Mararpanam. He says, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all sacrifices you perform, should be done as an offering to me. So he explains that whatever activities you perform, whatever they are, whether it's maintaining family or performing one's occupation, we have to learn the science, the art of offering those activities as an offering to Krishna in devotion. So that's an art that one has to learn. So in other words, one performs the activity, but offers the result to Krishna in the sense that I'm working at a particular profession, but ultimately it's because I'm in the Grihastha ashram. And because I'm in the Grihastha ashram, there is some need for some pecuniary gain, but I'm doing it simply so I can maintain myself, so I can serve you in different ways in Krishna consciousness. So we take care of our children in the same mood. We take care of the household as a wife in the same mood, trying to see Krishna within everything and to offer all results That means we do the activity not for personal gain, but as an offering to Krishna. But still the activity is performed. Although it may look material, this is called Gona Bhakti. Gona means parallel to pure devotional service. So devotees who find themselves living in the realm of the material energy and have responsibilities there, they are not exempt or what we say ousted from coming to the platform of pure devotional service, as long as they understand that everything they do is ultimately to serve the Lord. And then, of course, we carry on in our spiritual activities by hearing and chanting and associating, performing services in the temple, and reading the books. So all of that goes on side by side. But because I'm a devotee, because my goal is Krishna, my goal is not to become successful in my material occupation. I may be successful or not successful, that's incidental. It doesn't matter, it doesn't really become the focus. The focus is that I'm a devotee of Krishna, and whatever I do it as a service to him. So there's a certain mindset that develops that's not so easy. There's one devotee who worked on the job for 28 years. He found himself having to take the job out of an emergency. He didn't want it. But he was able to perfect his occupation by interspersing various types of spiritual activities along with his material responsibilities. And therefore, he was able to stay Krishna conscious even amongst doing day-to-day work like that. So it's an art. Now, I use the word with emphasis. It's an art that you have to learn how to do that.
Thank you so much. That definitely helps me a lot. Thank you so much, because it is something that's quite tricky, I feel like. Definitely, I'm in Krishna consciousness and I've surrendered to Krishna. But at the same time, as you've explained, what devotees go through. But I think, as you said, it's an art. So it's something I have to continue to practice and try and develop that. Yeah.
If you like, I could send you this. I don't know what to say. It's a file, and it has all of the ingredients that was used by this one devotee when he went into the material world to take up an occupation. He gives a lot of helpful hints. I can send it to Srimati, and Srimati can make it available to anybody who wants it. It's very helpful for those who live with family, have occupation, and are practicing Krishna consciousness at the same time.
Thank you so much. I will appreciate that. You read my mind, because as you were saying about this devotee and the job that he was doing and how he incorporated it, I was actually thinking, how can I do it in my job and work? So, and day to day, apart from my current sadhana and practice. So that will be very helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for a wonderful class.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. You can type your number in chat, private message me. I can save it and I'll send it to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dipti Mataji, you had a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Sorry, Maharajji, asking for a second question. Maharajji, my question is like, all the universe came from Vishnu, right? So why we are considering Krishna as the supreme Godhead and not Vishnu? I think I got the answer before, but it was not convincing to me, or like I couldn't remember. So that's the reason now today when this topic came, so I thought of asking again. So why we are considering Krishna as the supreme Godhead and not Vishnu?
He is. That's why we're considering it. He is. It's not a consideration. The material manifestations come by way of the expansions of the Lord in the Vishnu forms. The Vishnu forms deal with the material energy. So it is explained that, let's see, let me think. I had 2 points that I was going to make. Ete chamsam kalam pumsam Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. If you read the 3rd chapter of the 1st canto of Bhagavatam, describes all of the incarnations of the Lord. And then in the very end of the chapter, it sums it up by saying all of the portions, plenary portions, and manifestation incarnations of Krishna are all ultimately coming from the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. I'm just paraphrasing the verse. So, 1st canto, 3rd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, one can understand that. But it's also explained that Krishna expands himself into various manifestations, and the Vishnu forms are one of his expansion. Vishnu is there for material creation and for material maintenance. Krishna doesn't get involved with material energy at all. Although when he comes to the material world, he comes to perform his pastimes in the material world as Krishna in Vrindavan, but he never touches the material energy. But Vishnu maintains the material energy. He controls the mode of goodness, and he is the source of the material energy at the same time. So if you read the Bhagavatam, especially the 2nd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and also the 3rd, you'll see the differences or the relationship between Vishnu and Krishna. Krishna is one, the Vishnu manifestations are many. So it's all in Shastra. We have to take Shastra as the authority and not what people say. Because Krishna plays a role as an ordinary person in the material world, people don't think he's the supreme. Therefore, they make statements contrary to that, which are completely incorrect. Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. He is the source of all manifestations of the Godhead. He is the source of Narayans, the Vishnu forms, the living entities. He is the original. He is Adi Purush. He is the supreme person who is the source of all existence. All of that's mentioned over and over again, especially in Bhagavatam. We have to take the Shastras as being the authority and not somebody's ideas. Okay, Dipti?
Dipti Mataji, okay.
Thank you, Maharaji. Yeah. I mean, I heard about it from Shastra, like I'm reading these days, like Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, but always like this question remind me, because we always like read Vishnu Sahasranama, right? So yeah, sometimes it gets confused. Okay, which one we have to do, like chanting Vishnu Sahasranama or chanting more rounds of Hare Krishna. So which one is like more beneficial to us?
Well, it says that 1,000 names of Vishnu equal 1 name of Ram, and 3 names of Ram equal 1 name of Krishna. That's in the Shastra.
Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Questions?
Yes, Maharaj. Yeah. So I'm going to launch the quiz. Yeah, this is the first question on your screens. I request devotees to participate. We have 29 participants along with Guru Maharaj. I think we can expect 28 responses. $15 out of 29. $16, $17. Only 17 devotees. Devotees, please participate. 18. 19. 1 minute is up, and I'm going to end the first question soon. In a few more seconds. 21 out of 29. I don't think this is a difficult question. It's a very easy question. Okay. 22 out of 23. 22 out of 29. Okay, I'm going to end the poll here. Thank you all. So 21 out of 23. So I'm going to share the results. The correct answer is pearl strung on a thread. What is the analogy given by Krishna to preach that everything rests upon me? So the correct answer is pearl strung on a thread. So 21 out of 23 gave the correct answers. Okay. And
anybody think anthills on ants on an anthill?
yes, Maharaj, one like ants living in anthill, and one more person like forest fire in forest. Okay, so I'm going to launch the second one. Yeah,
Well,
second. Yes, Maharaj.
All living entities are born into delusion, overcome by
the dash. The options are there. Ten of 28, 11 of 28, 13. Come on, devotees. 19 of 28. The 20 devotees, that's all. Okay, I'm going to end the poll here. Thank you all for participating. So the correct answer is dualities of desire and hate. So 12 devotees out of 22, 55% correct, answered correctly. So remaining all are the wrong answers. Thank you all for participating and joining the class today. If there are no more questions, then we can end the call here. And tomorrow we'll be doing the chapter 8. And tomorrow's class will be given by Her Grace Prem Kishori Mataji. Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much once again for such a wonderful class and nice question-answer discussion. So through these sessions, we are reviving our Bhagavad Gita reading and also getting motivated to read more Bhagavad Gita. Thank you so much. Thank you all devotees. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patyanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for today.
Thank you very much, Hare Krishna Guru
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Thank you very much, Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.